Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Fixate Binge Podcast. You may notice, because it seems like it's a little bit out of the recent trend of things on this podcast, I am alone. J'ai une solitaire. I am alone. I am all alone. I am flying solo. And it's kind of nice. It's kind of nice because now you have to hear just from me. It is a nice break. I've got some more guests coming on, but if you've been tuning in to the podcast the last 6 weeks, I've had guests week after week after week, all of them fascinating, all of them exciting guests talking about ambitious endeavors, wonderful projects, and just so you think, just to disabuse any notion that I'm not going to do guests anymore, that's just not true. I'm going to have more guests on next week and the week after that, and probably the week after that, and so on and so forth for the rest of the year. I enjoy having guests on. I think they add something interesting to listen to when you get to hear from creators, writers, producers, screenwriters, directors, actors. I think that is the bread and butter of what this podcast is about. And it's about pursuing your dreams and about creating things and putting something out there and taking risks. And I really enjoy having people come on that are willing to put themselves out there and just go for it. So I enjoy their energy. I hope that you enjoy that energy. But sometimes, like interstitial tissue, I've got to come on here and be alone, and I'm not afraid of being alone. I've certainly hosted this podcast alone many, many a time, but I'm going to come on and devote this podcast to something that I've watched recently that I think you absolutely need to watch, you need to see. But before I get into that, I do want to talk about another film that I watched. I'm just going to talk about it very, very briefly, no spoilers. I'm not even sure if it's in the cinemas anymore. It may have had to, it may have been pushed out to make room for something else. And that is A Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey. I'm not even going to give you the specifics on it, who directed it, who screenwrote it, who produced it, box office numbers. I don't care about any of that stuff, right? But it does star Colin Farrell. It does star Margot Robbie. And it is an interesting film about two kind of lovelorn couples. One is still a believer in love, and the other is a bit of a cynic in love. And they come across some surreal, I don't want to give too much of it away, but they come across something together that allows them to reconcile with the past. And it's interesting how through the movie, they allow the past to inform the present, but also allow themselves, or at least give themselves permission to not be governed or ruled by the past, to, so to speak, live in the moment and be okay that there are uncertain things in the near future, the far future, whatever it may be, that it's completely okay to make risks. And yes, sometimes those risks mean we will get hurt. And I'm not just talking about true love and the risks we take there, but these two characters reconcile with their pasts, like I said, and agree to move forward. And so they're a bit of an odd couple pairing, even though, of course, Colin Farrell is, he's a dashing, swashbuckling young man, not so young. And Margot Robbie is, a Hollywood starlet. She's right up there with one of the greats of our generation. And so to see these two A-listers in a movie together, I don't know. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the pairing of Julia Roberts and Brad Pitt in that horrible film where somebody in Hollywood thought it was a great idea to put these two A-listers in the same movie together, and it was going to be box office gold. And that was The Mexican, which was a terrible, terrible film, one of the worst films. It should have ruined both their careers. Thankfully, it didn't. And so there is a sense of that. When you pad your film out with, the soup of the day, the soup du jour of these, the leading man, Colin Farrell, the leading lady, Margot Robbie, what are we really going to get? And it's It's a flawed film, but I really, for the most part, enjoyed it. I had a great time. My wife and I watched it together on a date night, and I think it has some interesting things to say, which are worth your viewing experience. I think it's worth that you check it out. Do you have to see it on the big screen? I don't think you do. It's not one of these cinematic experiences. I think you can rent it on the small screen. When it comes to streaming, you've got a quiet night in with your significant other, put it on. I think you'll enjoy what it has to say. As far as a big, bold, beautiful journey, this is firmly about an internal search of pain, of trauma, not severe trauma, but heartache and trauma and betrayal and the things that we carry with us as we move through time as we age, really. And so, as much as that film is an internal look into the self, I want to talk about a film that is very much an external search for meaning and an external search in society with a very political focus. I am talking, of course, about Paul Thomas Anderson's new film, just out in cinemas. You can still catch this on the big screen, and I urge you to do it, especially because it's filmed in VistaVision, and that is itself, if you know anything about photography and cinematography, that is well worth the price of admission. The last film we got that was filmed in VistaVision in the 21st century was last year's The Brutalist with Adrian, not Broner, but not the boxer, of course, but I can't remember. He had he's a two-time Oscar winner, and he made a jackass out of himself for speaking for 10 minutes when he won Best Actor last year, but that's beside the point. It's cinematically, it deserves to be seen on the big screen. If you're going to see One Battle After Another by Paul Thomas Anderson, and you're going to wait to screen it, I think you're robbing yourself of the cinematic experience, right? Which is, as I said earlier, not as important with a big, bold, beautiful journey. But before I jump into that, I do want to make a general comment. It's some feedback that my wife gave me, some constructive criticism, and I think I have to address it. I think she's onto something. But it's caused me to take a look at this podcast. It's caused me to take a look as a critic, a reviewer. I'm not a bona fide critic. I'm not paid. I'm not published, but I do keep a regular, a very active Letterboxd account, and I don't treat my Letterboxd reviews like tweets. I really dig into them. Some of my Letterboxd reviews will be over 1,000 to 1,500 words long. I like to give a rundown. I don't like to just make reviews at Letterboxd for clicks and pithy, clever, witty one-liners about the films I watch. I think that's a disservice, and I don't think that that's what the Letterboxd is for, really. So I don't care about the clicks. I care about breaking down films. Anyway, I'm going on. Point is, my wife noticed that I seem to love way too many films. I love so many things that I've seen at the cinema, and I couldn't disagree with her. If you've been listening to this podcast fairly faithfully, I'm pretty much a fan of almost every movie I dive into and discuss, and disproportionately when it comes to writing reviews on Letterboxd, I am more inclined to give it a 3 to 4 star rating. I don't hand out 5-star ratings like they're meaningless, but I tend to look on the bright side of things when it comes to filmmaking, regardless of budget, right? Now, if I'm looking at a Joe Russo, the Russo brothers, right? If I'm looking at the Russo brothers budget, right? And they've got $500 million to make a gigantic film, then I'm going to be a little bit more critical of how that money is used and what they do with it. I'm going to look at the AI or the CG, not AI, but the CGI, the special effects, the casting, the setting, the sets, the set scenes, all of that. I'm going to look at that. Or if I know that somebody's got a $500,000 budget, or they crowd-funded their budget for their indie film, right? They don't have the best of Hollywood screenwriters. They don't have A, B, C, or even D-listers in their film, but it's made with a genuine love and a genuine passion and sincerity. Then I'm going to use and I hope most critics do this, I'm going to use a different metric to judge that film. Am I expecting Casablanca when I watch that indie film made for $15,000 off of GoFundMe? Absolutely not. I'm going to be looking at it or reviewing that film based on what the resources were that went into that film, right? So, that's one thing. Okay, so that's one thing. The other thing that I think it's important to know is I'm not a spring chicken. I'm a Gen Xer. I'm 52. I look 52. Underneath this hat here, you can see tufts of white hair. I can actually assign each strand of those hairs to any of my 3 kids. I am not a young spring chicken anymore. I don't go to the cinema and watch every damn movie that comes out every week. I admire those that have the time to do it. Most of them are single. Most of them don't have full-time jobs. And if you are making a living watching movies, 5, 10 movies a week at the Cinemaplex or whatever it may be, or the indie art house, and you're able to do it every week and go to the film festivals, I tip my hat. I wish I could do that, but I don't have that luxury. I work full time and my job is not important, but I also have 3 kids. And unless I want to be regarded as an absent father, I have to spend time with my kids. I don't say I have to, I get to. I really enjoy being with my kids, even if disproportionately my kids probably think, rather than go hiking, Dad always wants to watch TV shows and movies with us. All right, I apologize. We'll deal with that in family counseling at a later date, some point down the line, and I'll deal with the guilt then. Anyway, point is, I don't have a lot of spare time, so my time is limited, and so I'm being very judicious about what I watch. In other words, if I think something, if I'm not hooked by the trailer, if I'm not intrigued by the buzz surrounding a film as it's about to come out, then I'm probably not going to spend my money and my time watching it. And I suspect if you're listening to this, I suspect you're probably the same way. You're very discerning about the time you give to sit down and watch either a TV show for 1 or 2 seasons or a 2 to 3 hour movie. Is it worth your time? I loved The Brutalist, but I'm going to be honest with you. It's a slog. It's a very slow moving movie. It feels like 3 hours. You may not want to watch it, no matter how much I speak highly of it, but your time is important to you. And I value that as well. I value my time. So chances are, if I'm investing my time and my money, it's usually on things that I suspect I'm going to enjoy. And the only analogy I can think of to kind of properly explain that would be, you've bought tickets to the comedy show, right? You don't know all the comics, you don't know the warm-up acts, but you've bought tickets to the comedy show. So you go, and let's go ahead and just take alcohol off the table. Let's say you're like me. You don't drink alcohol. So any laughing is coming from a sincere, genuine, authentic place. It's not the alcohol laughing for you. But you've bought tickets to the comedy show. You expect to laugh. You expect to enjoy yourself, unless you're MAGA and you just want to heckle the lib stand-up comedian, and that's for clickbait. But you expect to have a good time. You expect to laugh, right? You bring half the energy necessary to have a good time. You've already committed to have a good time, right? Well, I feel that way when it comes to movies. I go into movies regardless of budget, but if it's made with joy and it's made very, very well, and by the way, next week I am having a filmmaker, actor, writer, producer come on this podcast, and I can't wait to have him on. I love this guy's energy, and he's made a wonderful film, and I can't wait to share it with you. And I got to see an early screen version of it. You're going to love it. But when you bring that kind of energy into your film, I'm already matching it. I've already met you halfway with half my energy to have a good time and to enjoy the viewing experience. And so, yeah, chances are 9 times out of 10, I'm going to enjoy most of what I'm investing my time in because I suspect it's good, right? There's only a few instances where I'm like, oh, that was a misfire. I thought I was going to enjoy it. There was some buzz around it, or the Rotten Tomatoes score indicated there were some good or laudable things going on in the film, what a crap storm that was. Somebody definitely pooped in the picnic basket on this one. And the only thing I can think of about that is a recent film I watched, available on Amazon Prime, called Play Dirty, written and directed by Shane Black. And Shane Black, who I think goes without saying, is a wonderful screenwriter and director. Whether you enjoyed his work on the Predator film or Kiss Kiss Bang Bang with Val Kilmer and Robert Downey Jr., which was so smart. But Shane Black is a great screenwriter. He writes very clever, witty dialogue. I enjoy it. It's punchy, it's humorous, it's funny. But Play Dirty with Mark Wahlberg was a snooze fest. It was pretty dull. It was pretty lifeless. I could not care about Mark Wahlberg's character or the other characters in the film. And when I don't care about those characters or these lovable rogues or whoever you've got, these jewelers or heist, these guys are on this massive intercontinental heist, I don't care. I just didn't care. It was very very, very lifeless. And so I gave that a 2-star rating on Letterboxd. And rather than devote an entire podcast talking about all the ways it disappointed me, all the ways that I'm going to show the therapist on the doll that the movie hurt my feelings, I don't want to dwell in that headspace and trash on it, because obviously an effort was made. And frankly, I support anybody that works in entertainment and film, and that's kind of denigrating all the people that went to work building the sets and the action set pieces and the stunts and everything else. Those people don't deserve all that. So, and I say that as someone who's actually acted in a couple badly reviewed films. And if you have Internet Movie Database and you know my first and last name, go ahead and Google me. I was once in a Chuck Norris movie, and I wish I could tell you that it is one of the greatest martial arts films, right up there with Enter the Dragon. It is not. It is not Enter the Dragon where he squares off with Bruce Lee at the Roman Coliseum. It's not. I wish it was. It's not. It's a terrible film. It's called Sidekicks. I was in it. I'm in the cast list, and it sucked. But having been on the set and having worked with all the people, the costume, the makeup, the people, those people don't deserve to have this kind of blight, this dark mark on their resume, because they did their jobs. Unfortunately, it just didn't translate well onto the screen and the finished product. But anyway, I digress. But my point is that yes, I do like a lot of good films. I am very careful. I think I'm careful in what I choose to spend time on and what I give my attention to. So yes, more likely than not, I'm going to enjoy most of what I'm going to watch. If that makes me a flawed critic, if that makes me a compromised critic, and you can't trust my perspectives on film anymore because I speak so positively and exuberantly about things I watch, it is what it is, man. If you need a cranky critic, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be your cranky critic. Mostly because I think it's very easy to punch down on people. I think it's a little bit too easy in our society to tear down, rip apart. Like I said, punch down. I don't think that's very nice. So I've said that. So that might be why when you go to my Letterboxd account and you see my average rating is like between 3 and 4 stars for most things. And I've watched over like 1,000 films on there. Not since I started the account, but in total. I generally like watching movies, and I'm generally going to enjoy the things I watch. And every now and then I will experience a dud, and I'm not afraid to call it out, but I'm not going to give an entire podcast to just trashing on something I didn't like. I don't, there are podcasts out there that do that, and you're welcome to them. But here we try and keep it positive. And that goes for my guests too. When I have my guests come on, first of all, I'm so thankful that you've given up some time to be on my podcast. It can be sometimes a very intimidating and daunting thing to discuss your work, to discuss things that you've done, especially if you're acting in it. I mean, can you imagine? Let's talk about your film. Let's talk about your scene. Let's talk about, this brainchild. You wrote this wonderful thing. How would it be to sit there and listen to people just tear apart something you created? For most people, they can't handle the criticism. I don't know how these judges on America's Got Talent or X Factor, I don't know how they sleep at night, just absolutely ripping apart people's souls for ratings on that show. I just think it's absolutely cruel. And the world is a very ugly place. It's very ugly. I think it's easier to complain than to praise. I just do. I just think it's easier to complain and nitpick than praise, than find praise. For every, I'm very nitpicky. I'm very critical of a lot of other subjects. I might be critical about organized religion. I might be critical about politics, our current political climate. Very critical about that. I'm sure you know. But when it comes to film making or television making, I think that I don't have the stomach to continue being negative and nasty. All right. So I beat this topic to death. But anyway, that is my long drawn out response to my wife's critique of my work. And I don't disagree with her. She's right. I tend to love a lot of things. I do. I tend to love a lot of things. Sorry, I went Peter Brady there. But anyway, I'm getting off track. I'm not here to talk just about the things that I love and the things and why I love them. I really want to talk to you about something I watched. It is Paul Thomas Anderson's One Battle After Another. It stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Benicio del Toro, Sean Penn, Teyana Taylor, Regina Hall, and newcomer Chase Infinity, who is literally plucked out of obscurity. It's her first film role, and she might even end up with an Academy Award nomination for this, which is, my goodness, it's incredible. Keep an eye on Chase Infinity. A good friend of mine who's a better content creator than I am is named, and he's a critic as well, is Adam Cromashow, and he has made a wonderful TikTok about Chase Infinity and about Paul Thomas Anderson's effect on people's careers when they're starting out. If you end up in a Paul Thomas Anderson film early in your career, the future looks very bright for you. And he nailed it. He's absolutely right when it comes to that. But anyway, I watched this film and I want to share my review with you. And so I'm going to read this. It's a little long. What you need to know going forward is spoilers aplenty, tons of spoilers. If you haven't seen One Battle After Another, press pause right now. You've been warned, because I'm going to give away so much, and it's going to ruin or dilute your experience if you go and see it after hearing this. So press pause, and you can come back to this. But here's my review, tons of spoilers of my viewing experience of seeing One Battle After Another. And I'm going to have to take my glasses off for this one. All right, here we go. Okay. No matter how you approach Paul Thomas Anderson's One Battle After Another, whether broadly or myopically, the film has many stories to tell that expand or contract however we view it. On a larger scale, the film is about the oppressive strictures governing society that turn whole swaths of the downtrodden into a community of masses huddled together, and the revolutionary agents who seek to overthrow these draconian bulwarks. On a smaller scale, the film is also about the bonds between a father and a daughter, and the turbulent past that inevitably superimposes itself on the present, threatening to tear asunder those very powerful bonds. Filmed in VistaVision, which I mentioned earlier, the second film of the 21st century since last year's acclaimed The Brutalist, PTA, and that's what I call Paul Thomas Anderson. That's not the parent-teacher alliance or whatever that's called for schools. PTA's film, much like the story, is epic in its larger themes and equally poignant in its more intimate interactions. VistaVision particularly excels with panorama as well as close-ups, two tonally valuable facets of filmmaking that soar in One Battle After Another. Twinned with PTA's frequent musical collaborator, Radiohead's Johnny Greenwood, their sixth collaboration that is on track to match that of Spielberg and John Williams, the percussive, jangly score carries us along with adrenaline-charged intensity and occasional rise and fall intonations that embrace the anarchy of the film itself. Lighter moments, Even humorous ones are perfectly balanced by Greenwood's score, and it's long past time for the Academy to bestow its honors or further risk artistic obsolescence. PTA's film begins in the chaos of homegrown revolutionaries, the French 75, a far-left revolutionary group who are actively liberating immigrants in detainment camps along the California-Mexico border, targeting banks and military border security agents in the name of establishing a counterculture new order in an America increasingly controlled by conservative nationalists. Adapted from Thomas Pynchon's 1990 novel, Vineland, a postmodern novel set against the backdrop of California in 1984 during Ronald Reagan's re-election, PTA's One Battle After Another offers a very close analog to Pynchon's novel, with Leonardo DiCaprio playing fellow revolutionary saboteur leader Pat Calhoun / Bob Ferguson, a bomb specialist, alongside Perfidia Beverly Hills, played by Teyana Taylor. It is their revolutionary pairing that results in the birth of a daughter that puts their relationship at the crossroads. Pursued by the aptly named Colonel Stephen J. Lockjaw, portrayed by Sean Penn in what must be an award-winning performance, soon the French 75 are disbanded after key members of the group are captured. 16 years later, and living under an assumed name, DiCaprio's Bob, whose revolutionary days seem long behind him, lost in a haze of bong resin and brunchtime shots of scotch, is single father to Willa Ferguson, the incredible film debut of Chase Infinity, living almost off-grid in Northern California. When the relentless Colonel Lockjaw once again is back in pursuit of the disbanded members of the French 75, DiCaprio's Bob and Willa find themselves barely able to keep 1 foot ahead of the long arm of the law. Relying on a network of committed locals, memorably from Willa's own Taekwondo instructor, the scene-stealing Benicio del Toro as Sensei Sergei St. Carlos, who is revealed to be a major figure in the Underground Railroad movement for undocumented immigrants, the latter half of the film becomes a thrilling pursuit that culminates in one of the most cinematic endings ever seen. There is so much to enjoy in PTA's One Battle After Another, with performances from DiCaprio, Infinity, Taylor, Regina Hall, Del Toro, and especially Sean Penn, that are more than enough to hold our attention for the 2 hours and 45-minute runtime that seemingly flies by on the wings of pure cinema. Is it PTA's all-time masterpiece? I'll hold my tongue on that one, but it's surely in the conversation. And that is my full review of One Battle After Another. I hope I haven't completely spoiled that for you, and shame on you if you didn't heed my warning and you just kept on listening to this. I didn't give away everything. There's still quite a lot to discover there, but I wanted to basically talk about some of the things that are going on in the film. I believe this is, without a doubt, without any argument, this is Paul Thomas Anderson's most politically charged films he's ever made. Easily his most politically polemic films he's ever made. Another content creator who has been a guest on this podcast before as well, Deontay Jenkins. He made a really good argument, and I urge you to check him out, Deontay Jenkins, that One Battle After Another is really two films in one, that the first, 30 to 45 minutes of the film is all about the past. It's all about the past, and that the second half of the film, or the 2 hours of remaining of the film, is a completely different film with a completely different imperative. The first film, if we were to bifurcate this into a two-film analysis, the first part of the film is really about the revolutionaries themselves, the French 75. It is really a film where Teyana Taylor's Perfidia Beverly Hills is the main character, and she goes through a complete character arc in this film, making very difficult choices, making very difficult sacrifices, making the kinds of sacrifices that will cause us to question her moral character certainly there are some things that happen there that, yes, will definitely challenge what you think about her character and the sacrifices she's made and some of her decisions. It's very much her story. The second half of the film, of course, is DiCaprio. And if you really want an analog of what DiCaprio's character reminds me of, he kind of reminds me if Walter Sobchak from The Big Lebowski and The Dude had a baby, it would be DiCaprio's character. He has some Walter Sobchak tendencies in the first part of the film as the significant other of Teyana Taylor's Perfidia, Beverly Hills, and then, of course, in the second half of the film, he's very much embraced the dude lifestyle. So he's very much, I mean, he's not bowling. He's he's not bowling, and he's not trying to help anyone conceive man, but he is not your idea of the ideal single parent. And as good fortune would have it, their daughter, Willa Ferguson, played by Chase Infinity, who is magnetic, fantastic in this film. Every scene she's in, she's got a great future ahead of her. She turns out to be wonderful, well-developed, great head on her shoulders, principled. Traits that are kind of strange because those are traits that the mother had in many ways. She resembles more of her mother's temperament than her own father's temperament. And what's strange about that is that, and this is a bit of a spoiler, is that the mother had almost no hand whatsoever in her upbringing. And yet there's definitely a similarity between those two characters. There's this wonderful, and of course it's intentional, but there's this wonderful clip, and you can see it, of course, in the trailer, of a very heavily pregnant Teyana Taylor's Perfidia Beverly Hills shooting an AK-47, with the gun almost mounted on top of her stomach. And then later, 16 years later, when Willa Ferguson, the daughter, is hanging out with former revolutionaries, she too, from the same kind of angle, the same blocked angle, is also shooting a semi-automatic weapon in much the same way her mother did. Like mother, like daughter. It's very strange how some traits seem to transcend presence. Sometimes it's almost in the blood. It's just fascinating. It's just really, really fascinating. Benicio del Toro in this is hilarious from beginning to end. He comes across initially as a minor character, and then turns into one of the most enjoyable things. You'll see there's quite a lot of humor in this, which you'll enjoy. And that was the thing I think that was missing, but of course I understand it. Not a lot of humor in There Will Be Blood, Paul Thomas Anderson's earlier masterpiece, but there's quite a lot of humor in this. And yet, when the film comes out, I mean, we're in 2025, and Thomas Pynchon's novel, Vineland, I mean, I'm going to have to find the time and pick that up and start reading it, because it very much is about immigration and border control and issues with undocumented migrants in this country. And that is very much a huge issue in America right now. And I don't want to wax too political about it right now, but we've got ICE agents with 100 times the budget than they've ever had, who are deputized and going into cities, into classrooms, into homes, into the fields, into Home Depots, and they're not targeting criminals. They're not targeting the dregs of society. They're targeting mothers, fathers, ailing grandparents, children, and carting them off to detention centers in places as ridiculous as Alligator Alcatraz in Florida, detainment centers, and in some cases, then deporting them not even to the countries that their family are from. They're deporting them to other countries throughout the world. This is ridiculous. And these ICE agents are masked doing it. We have masked military people in our streets, targeting hardworking people, aching to be free, literally targeting the huddled masses. So this is a film that very much takes a look at that, kind of peels back the curtain on a segment of our society that sometimes we overlook, sometimes we take for huge, I think we always take them for granted. So I like how prescient one battle after another was. Paul Thomas Anderson's way to make a 2 hour and 45-minute film feel like a 45-minute film. And it went by so fast. It went by so quickly. And the ending with the rolling hills and Vista Vision and this very panoramic shots of the California desert for this ending. And like I said, it's one of the best endings in cinema history. It's up there, folks. It's one of the best. I'm going to put it right up there with Lawrence of Arabia. I'm going to put it right up there with one of the great, great endings. It's so perfect. And I enjoyed this thing. I haven't said as much about Sean Penn's character. I kind of want you to discover a little bit more about him and find out what his character really is all about. But Sean Penn seems to embody some of the all the traits of things that are wrong with this society, the traits of Christian nationalists and being in control of a group of people, and really just his character and the motivations of his character, racist motivations, but also respect. He's just obsessed with respect, and his desire to be counted as one of the most respected in the upper echelons of these kind of skull and bone societies that you hear about, the Illuminati, if you will, of America. And there is a very, I didn't even mention it in my review, but there is a somewhat hilarious and chilling group of very powerful white, that's important, white men who are in positions throughout the country. And he desperately, Colonel Lockjaw desperately wants to be counted as one of them, almost like a regular neo-Nazi who dreams of being made a grand dragon in the Ku Klux Klan. So I thought Sean Penn's performance was mesmerizing and terrifying, and you just hated him. And it was vulnerable at times, and his whole character and how it what happens to his character is just interesting. There's so much I want to say, and I said that there were going to be spoilers aplenty in this, but I also want to hold back because I'd like to hear from you what your experiences are watching him. But hear me out. I think there's going to be some Academy Award nominations. I think Benicio del Toro might nab one for Best Supporting. I think it wouldn't be an outrage if DiCaprio nabbed one. And I don't think it would be crazy if Teyana Taylor got one. Mostly because her film, which I loved, 1001, which happened a couple years ago, which I greatly loved, was completely overlooked. And sometimes these award circuits, like the Academy Awards, they'll look at the body of someone's work and they'll say, it doesn't look like this actor or actress is a one-off. We probably need to honor them for their consistent, excellent work. And I think Teyana Taylor might end up with one herself. I think Sean Penn not only gets nominated, but wins, whether it's Best Supporting or Best Actor, but I think it's a Best Supporting. I think he wins it. I think Sean Penn wins it for Colonel Stephen J. Lockjaw. His character is, it's electric. Every moment he's on screen, it's electric. So I've said enough, I think, about One Battle After Another. I think you deserve to see this. I think it's very much of the moment, given the political climate, given the things that are going on in our country. And I think it has a lot to say. And if the film doesn't resonate with you, maybe the book will. The film definitely resonated with me. It's one of Paul Thomas Anderson's greatest films. I highly, highly recommend it. I don't want to say much more than that. But listen, next week, I have a very, very special guest, and he might not come alone. So I might even be surprised. He might bring somebody with him. But I am very much looking forward to my guest next week. I've been looking forward to this for over a month. His name is Heston Horwin. He has got a wonderful film, an incredible film that he and his friends have made. And even how this film came to be, even how they financed it, is a story you're not going to believe. It's one of the most interesting ways I've ever heard of someone financing a film. I watched it. I loved it. And I can't wait to talk to them about it. And I don't even think it'll be their one and only visit to the podcast. I think there's going to be a lot more going on with this, but I can't wait to bring them on. That is going to be next week. And then the week after that, I've got some more exciting guests coming on. So you're not going to want to miss that when they do. Anyway, happy Halloween. We haven't got there yet, but we're now in the middle of October. The leaves are falling. The weather's cooling. I hope you're safe. I hope you're happy. I hope you're gentle when you look in the mirror and you're critical of yourself. You can constructively criticize yourself, but be kind. Be kind. Life is not easy. Be gentle and kind to yourself. Okay? All right. See you next week.